Today I'm going to try to draw this stream and stuff in St. David's, Wales, and right off the bat, let me hit you with some interesting tidbits about this place, because I probably don't do that enough, and this one is exciting. St. David's is the smallest city in the UK. Neat. Moving on, as you can see, there's a lot going on here, and maybe you're wondering something like, hey, what's this guy gonna do with all that stuff? I wondered that too, but if you're patient, you'll see for yourself. Do not skip to the end of the video. That would be cheating and rude, so please don't. Clearly, I'm feeling silly today. And is it because this one surprised me? Maybe. Who's to say? Anyway, I'm starting with the arch of that stone bridge in the distance. And have I made it a little too big? Yes, probably. It is too big, but that's okay because I have a plan. Do you see all that stuff on the right? All the beautiful bits of the St. David's Cathedral? And I don't know, maybe that's a monastery back there too. I don't want to draw any of that. Maybe I'll draw some of the bottom of the middle building, the one I think might be the monastery, I don't know, but that's not what I'm interested in. Instead, I had my sights set on this stone bridge specifically, along with the stream that I'm sitting in. You'll notice there's not much room for me here in this stream. There's practically nothing but water, but I managed to find a nice couple of rocks atop which to balance myself, and it's fine. Anything for the drawing. Also, there's a bridge directly behind me, and many a passerby did indeed loom over me and say things, including but not limited to, look, he's drawing, and oh, look at that, and isn't he cool and pretty? No, not that one. My wife said that one. That's not true either. She didn't say anything, but there were quite a few people who sat and stared, which is nerve-wracking. I kind of thought I was underneath the bridge, like a troll, enough to not cause a scene, but what can I say? I don't know, actually. I don't know what to say. Never mind. So, if you haven't guessed by now, this reference was a big shot in the dark for me. I don't think I've ever tried to draw something like this, especially the way I've chosen to approach it, that is ignoring what seems to be the primary subject in frame. But having chosen something yesterday that I was certain would be simple and straightforward, only to fiercely prove myself wrong, I figured anything was fair game today. So I chose something that was so out of my comfort zone because I was no longer comfortable. As opposed to yesterday, I don't leave the drawing up to my muscle memory because it's unreliable anyway, as we all saw. But instead, I carefully, delicately take my time here, and I think it paid off. Also, because I was so dejected by my previous drawing, and it's not really that serious, but you should go watch it if you haven't already. I was in a completely different headspace. I was seeing the scene for exactly what it was, and rather than prematurely assuming each technique I'd use to manage it, I was taking each piece individually, sort of reevaluating it as I drew. That meant it would ultimately take more of my time, but in the end, I think it was worth it. Have I said that enough? This could have gone sideways multiple times, so I'm glad I gave it the attention it deserved, and I'm glad I gave myself the time and space to do it. Okay, at this point, I'm feeling really good about the bridge. The entire structure has come together pretty seamlessly. One thing I chose to do here that was a huge disadvantage to me yesterday was immediately drawing these lines along the arch of the bridge. It confused things so much with yesterday's castle that it probably doesn't seem smart for me to do today, but I have a reason. By including these little bits of detail straight away, I could better measure out the proportions of the rest of the bridge, or at least that's what I told myself. My proportions aren't perfect. I think I made the bridge too tall, or at least too tall from the top of the arch to the top of the bridge itself. But still, I had my reasoning, I thought it was sound, and it didn't negatively affect the rest of the drawing, so I stand by it. As for texture on the bridge, that is, I don't even think about it for the next few minutes at least, because That is what really screwed me over yesterday. So once the general structure of the bridge is in place, I devote pretty much all of my attention to this foreground, to the stream. There's so much going on here, tons of little rocks, reflections in the water, sparse bits of foliage. There's a lot for me to consider. The first thing I want to do is get this left side on the paper, and that's because one, it acts as a really nice leading line to the center, and two, it's a lot more defined than the other side. On the right, there's not much delineation between the wall, the foliage, and the rocks leading to the water. I don't want to jump into it right away because while I'm drawing in the left side, I still haven't worked out how to manage that other side, and I don't want to go in blind. So as I draw, I'm looking up to observe, taking more and more in over time, just gathering as much data as I can before diving in, which at this point I have. With all of that, this entire drawing, to my delight, becomes a lot more imaginative than many of my other drawings. Ironically, while I spend all of this time soaking up the scene, being careful with my lines, all of that, I feel comfortable embellishing a thing or two here or omitting a thing or two there. And by the end, this one becomes less a reflection of the scene and more a representation of my experience sitting within it. Naturally, some of that comes from my lack of experience and inability to accurately render these little things out, like the rocks and the water itself, but it's also about what stood out to me in the moment. Spending so much time observing meant that I naturally gravitated toward certain things, and those things are what make it onto the page. Even the shape that the river takes on, it's quite different from that of the reference. But I actually prefer it, which is cool, I guess. Imbuing these drawings with a bit more of myself is something I've talked about a lot. Having photography as this other medium in my life, the medium that 90% of my creativity filters through, puts drawing in a funny position. I want to be good at it, the drawing, but I also have no need for like carbon copy recreations, especially when I have a camera. So there's a weird balancing act between really desperately wanting to improve, which takes some amount of just copying what I see, I suppose, and wanting to distance myself from getting caught up in copying what I see. And I'm sure there are more than two paths, but in my view, it seems like I either bite the bullet and learn everything I can through this sort of like objective copying, or I can almost certainly delay my progress, but embrace a bit more creativity and playfulness along the way. There's a spectrum there, surely, but these are the extremes that I see, and my brain, while I'm drawing, clearly prefers the former. But today, when I'm pretty set on going in that direction, conscious of my need for that slow, intentional, more objective practice, my brain takes the day off and lets me do whatever I want. Why is that? What's happening here? I don't understand. Anyway, I'm happy to see that I was still able to loosen up here, and contrary to the effect it had on yesterday's drawing, I think today's, like I keep saying, is better for it. So if you followed along on this little road trip we've been on, this will be the last drawing from that. We're headed back to Cardiff for a quick stop before visiting our friend Rowan's family in his hometown. After all these years of knowing each other, we've never made it over there. So we're excited to get the chance to, see where he grew up, maybe take a walk in the hills, grab a beer or something, and hopefully, if we have time, do one last drawing together. After that, he'll drive us back to Cardiff, and then we're off to somewhere new. As usual, I won't tell you where to, but here's a hint. It's the country, not the state. Maybe that's too easy. If you guess it, let me know in the comments. We'll be there for a while, so I'm hoping I can see a ton of different places and make equally as many drawings. While I'm there, I'll be hitting 100 drawings, which is wild. But once I do, I was thinking about scaling this back to 5 days a week rather than every day. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I've learned so much, but the deeper I get into this, the more difficult the scheduling becomes. I thought I could pull it off, and I can, but it's to the detriment of a handful of other things that I just can't let slip. So after video 100, I'm thinking Monday through Friday. That way I can still keep learning at a reasonable pace. I can still post a bunch of videos, but it doesn't kill me or my other hobbies in the process. Also, if you haven't guessed, I do have to travel to these places, which, if you think about it, is at least one immediate lost day that I have to find a way to make up. And having that little bit of wiggle room, I think, will be extremely beneficial. Well, it looks to me like this drawing is really beginning to take shape. There's that implication of detail I've talked so much about, and there's not any jarring values like yesterday's castle windows. Right now, this is as close to what I had in my head as I could ever ask for. As you can see, I've utilized a lot of these light marks, which give the whole thing an airy quality, and I'm happy about that. I'm not the biggest fan of using them, but for something like this, something so outside of my understanding, I gave myself a pass to be a lot more careful and exploratory, and these work great for that. Sometimes I miss the days of the ballpoint pen though. With these, there's very little room for exploration because every mark is pretty bold, but with the ballpoint, I've seen people draw with these broad ranges of values. By using pressure, you can control a ballpoint surprisingly well, which I don't think is the same for a fine liner. Don't get me wrong, I prefer these in almost every other conceivable way, and their boldness has no doubt helped me become slightly more bold myself, but every now and then, I'd love a little bit more flexibility. Regardless, what I have here is making me really happy, and in the moment, all I could think was, this is looking nice, don't mess it up, which thankfully, and I'm spoiling the end here, not like I've said it enough already, I don't think I do. I think it's looking pretty good. However, there are two things that I wish I hadn't included, and those are the other buildings. The two on the left are unfortunately just a little strange. I think their perspectives are off somehow, and I still don't know exactly how. I don't know how I would fix them. And the main one in the middle, I barely even touch because I realized quickly that it's unnecessary. Granted, in the reference video, it's a significant piece of the scene and the composition, but because I shifted my focus so dramatically, its significance was lost. And by including it to the small extent that I do, I think it takes away from the rest of the drawing. But even those things are relatively inconsequential because the rest of this has been a huge surprise for me, like I said in the beginning, like I've said throughout this whole video. Even down to the stupid little rocks in the water, this came to life in a way that I did not expect, and that is just so exciting and fulfilling. I won't get my hopes up or get complacent, I know where that can get me, but as always, it's nice to see these incremental improvements from time to time, and really, all I have to thank is the consistency with which I've approached this. If not for that, I would probably still be doodling the same 2 or 3 things in the exact same way, giving up after only a day or two. So yeah, I love this. It's minimal in a way I can appreciate, it's accurate but not rigid, and it's a testament to the importance of pushing myself and to trying new things because, strange, very cool things can happen when I do. I probably could have spent the entire day running around this area, the UK's smallest city, picking things to draw. But at the end of the day, I'm glad I chose this because now I can broaden my search for references in the future. So what do you think? I'd love to hear your opinion in the comments. And if you like this video, you know what to do. And if you're enjoying the whole series, subscribe. Also, tell someone about this channel. I'm sure they'd love it. Maybe, I don't know, share it somewhere. Anyway, I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.